Okay, hello everybody. In this lecture, we are going to see some definitions about management. So to begin with, let's try to define what is management. Management is a buzzword today. This word is very used because managers are very important people in an organization because those people set the goals of the objectives, set orientations, strategic orientations. They set everything in an organization. So the success of the organization depends on those people, depends on the way they manage. For example, for Mr. Henry Mintzberg, a professor at McGill University in Canada, management is a discipline learned in context. You may have noticed that the word discipline is very broad. Mr. Henry Mintzberg tried to not fall in contradictions between how management is practiced actually in organization. So he chose to use a very broad term such as discipline. So management is not an activity for Henry Mintzberg. It's rather a discipline learned in context. What is most important about management is it must be learned, but not any way. It must be learned in context. It means that you must learn management by practicing management in real situations, not in simulation or case studies. So, is management a science? No, because science is something repeatable, is a discipline based on data, on observation, and it is repeatable. If you have the same data, the same conditions, it leads you to the same consequences. But management is very complex. It's very complex and very real. So it's not a science. But is it a profession? For example, a profession like a teacher, like an welding agent, like a cashier. It's those professions are repeatable in the practice. The way you do, the way you prepare a course or lecture for teachers is somehow repeatable. You do it in the same manner. You don't. It's broadly the same manner because, as you may have noticed, managers are not confronted in the or say for example teachers or people with professions are not confronted with a lot of changes in their environment, in the way they practice their profession. Managers do, because a manager is always confronting change, confronting circumstances which are moving like moving sand. So management is not a science, it's not a profession. But what is management? Is management about coordinating? Is management coordinated activities? Is management about designing, analyzing, planning, and taking actions and so on. Do managers have time to really make some critical thinking, to take some time to analyze, diagnose? Do they practice those activities regularly? I don't think so, because people with very little experience for example, industry or service, they may have noticed that managers are always busy, they are always interrupted, their thinking is very fragmented, the information they have is very fragmented. So Henry Mintzberg did this observation and took a conclusion that management is not about planning, diagnosing, analyzing, planning, taking action, or taking strategic orientation on decision based on analysis, and deep analysis based on facts, based on data. No, it's not about that, because managers are always interested, are always, they try to keep their head above water. They try to keep up with the change they are facing. So this is a myth, this is a folklore. Management is not about, it's not a formal process of analyzing, diagnosing, and taking actions. Um, to be more realistic, Henry Mintzberg proposed the definition I just gave you. It's a discipline learned in context, no more than that. Because if you try to be more precise, you'll be in contradiction with what is really practiced. So, Mr. Henry Mintzberg preferred to stay more general in the definition. So it leads us to a very, very critical question: how managers are educated, how managers are trained. For example, in a very renowned school like MIT, like Harvard Business Schools, managers are they pretend to produce managers, people with a label ready to manage. Mr. Henry Mintzberg emphasizes that those schools are killing the discipline of management by pretending to produce ready to manage people. So he simply was doubting those methods of training managers, because for Mr. Henry Mintzberg, management has to be learned in context, not in a business school with a lot of case studies. Yes, it's a good thing to have all those case studies, but the real education is in the context. So he proposed something which he called coaching ourselves. Coaching ourselves is simply managers who try to exchange information, to exchange their experience, to exchange their case studies, but in a more realistic way. For example, they gather in a room and they try to exchange those their experience uh, in a related subject. They can have someone who coordinate or animate their meeting, but it's not a vital condition. they can hold those meetings themselves. But the most important thing managers do, besides being interrupted, besides all the time, besides being having to respond to urgent phone calls, besides to having very urgent meeting with customers, angry customers, besides trying to resolve some conflicts in their organization, they do something very important. It's strategic planning. So what is strategic planning?